Does he leave? Do they try to work out a trade? They have assets now. Do they maybe want to collect some more and just really do a reboot? Russ has 4 years, $171 million left on his contract. So the Thunder are still in the luxury tax, even without Paul George on their roster. So do they want to stay in the luxury tax for a team that's Russ and some younger guys and sort of whatever else they have there? And do they want to be paying Russ nearly $50 million the year he turns 34? But then again, they have to decide if somebody else is going to want to go do that. Vince Carter is here on set. Just look at him. He's got his head in his hands.
Oh, my goodness.
Buried over the idea.
If I was getting $47 million at 34, oh, heaven.
Living in Oklahoma, by the way.
Well, for now. So my question to you guys is, Vince, from a player's perspective, if you see the direction the franchise is going, do you want out at that point?
Well, first and foremost, I want to know what are they going to do now? Where do we go from here? What is the plan? You made this happen. You allowed this to happen. However you want to word that. What happens now? Because I'm here now. I've been loyal. I've done everything. I've played my butt off, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. What happens now? And then he can choose and dictate from there. All right, well, I need to move on, or we need to get this done now. Okay,
but you saw the contract numbers. I mean, our other teams, on our earlier show, Kendrick Perkins said, I think he'd fit in great with the Heat. I see that. These are big numbers to be talking about.
That's a lot of money. But Rachel, after I said, hey, he's productive and he's healthy, and then we went off air after that, I went back and did the actual numbers. Last 4 seasons, 314 out of a possible 324 games played, averaging over 36 minutes per game. He's got an MVP in that. He's got a couple of top 5
triple doubles, obviously.
He's incredibly productive, and he's healthy. And you might, if you're a team that has its brothers, for instance, the Clippers might say, I don't know, we want Russell Westbrook, and we got these 2 guys. But if you're a team that doesn't have its brothers, you don't have the choice. Beggars can't be choosers. He plays. He's healthy.
Yeah.
He's on the court.
And he's efficient.
And he's good.
Well, here's my question, though. And by the way, I'm one of the people who voted for Russ for MVP. I still stand behind that vote. I think there's so many things Russ brings to the table, right? But I do see, Vince, you're one of the only humans we have witnessed in the league whose athleticism does not decline into their 30s. And his game is built on athleticism. And so I understand why Oklahoma City had to sign him to that Supermax, because they were after Kevin Durant and they needed to get that deal done and re-anchor the franchise, and that went into his MVP year. Other teams don't have all of those extra narrative things going on. Do you think his game is going to be the same at age 33 or 34 when you're paying him $50 million as it is now?
We don't know that. I didn't know if I would still be the same player, have the same athleticism, but it depends on what he wants out of his game and career. I think with him, he can still find some athleticism and savor the athleticism that he has. When he got injured with the knee, did everybody expect to see rest like this? No, you know what I'm saying? So it's possible that he can keep it. He'll put the work in.
Yep, absolutely. We got to get to our distant replay. It's this date in 2007.
Just maybe leaving Oklahoma City as well. So they lose Paul George in a trade last night to the Clippers, and you can now only imagine what's going to happen with Russell Westbrook. You wouldn't think he'd want to sort of stick around on a team that goes from maybe NBA Finals contender or Western Conference Finals contender to now essentially looking at a full rebuild after they got those boatload of draft picks from the Clippers last night. Our Royce Young grew up in Oklahoma. He's covered the Thunder for us at ESPN 24/7, 365. Just take me inside the vibe of the city, the way that this team has been embraced so much by the entire state. You had Harden, you had Durant, you had Westbrook, and now you're on the verge of losing all 3 of them.
It's a harsh reality, Zubin, and a hard day for, I think, a lot of Thunder fans and Oklahomans to process. Just for what you said, I think what it is, what today represents in so many ways is kind of the end of the first era of Thunder basketball. And whatever ends up happening with Russell Westbrook, if he is traded, if he's not, today kind of marks, I think, a moving on process for this team as they transition into what really is the first full-on reboot since the franchise relocated from Seattle to Oklahoma City. You know, the franchise itself was stunned by Paul George's trade request. They did what they had to do to make the best of what was a bad situation, but they're left with essentially a treasure trove of assets as they go forward. But this is a small market team, one of the smallest in all of professional sports, and one, Zubin, quite frankly and quite honestly, that has never experienced professional basketball without a superstar. So if Russell Westbrook does end up being moved, it makes you wonder what February games in Oklahoma City on a Tuesday night are going to look like if it doesn't have an all-NBA player to come watch. And that's something that the franchise itself is considering as they carve this path forward. But they also had to take into account what can they do to preserve Oklahoma City basketball as long as it can. And part of that is reacquiring assets as much as they can as they begin this full-on rebuild.
That's a good point. They obviously got a ton of assets from the Clippers. They could obviously probably get a boatload for Westbrook from somebody. And I think we mentioned with Woj, and I think it bears worth repeating, that Sam Presti does have a pretty good, their general manager, history with drafting guys. So if they do have to rebuild that way, they probably do have confidence that they are going to be able to pick up the right guys. That's our Royce Young with the Thunder with Westbrook for now. All right, so let's head off to Major League Baseball, if we would. This is the final weekend before we hit the All-Star break. Max Scherzer is the national
team that is not a contender anymore. I think he's going to be very much available in the trade market this summer. They're going to talk together about working together to see what might make sense. I think one team to watch in this marketplace, the Miami Heat.
Okay, the Miami Heat. So obviously they've already acquired Jimmy Butler, and then we'll see if they could pair him with Russell Westbrook, which would make for yet another dynamic duo here in the NBA. There is no such thing as the NBA offseason. He probably knows that a little bit too well, but it's amazing. It continues to dominate the headlines ever since 6 p.m. Sunday Eastern last week happened. It's just been unbelievable. Who knows what's next? Well, the answer is he'll know what's next, and when we have something, he'll be here. Woj, can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Zubin.
Great to have you here. All right, so we're going to move on tonight here on SportsCenter. Woj is going to be back with some NBA is here. We got a little Wimbledon we're going to take you to, from what I imagine here. Got middle sun for the second time in less than a week. The foundation of the NBA has been rocked, and suddenly the dynamic duo the Nets and the Lakers have crafted has been matched. The ramifications are now being felt in Los Angeles, as you know, Toronto, and Oklahoma City. More on all of that with Woj in a second, but first we're going to begin in Las Vegas, who doesn't have an NBA team but does have some big NBA news, and that's new on SportsCenter tonight. And that is the situation with Zion Williamson. He is out for the duration of the Summer League with a bruised knee. He took knee-to-knee contact yesterday. This game, of course, was suspended due to the earthquake, 7.1 magnitude. Zion had 11 points. He had a handful of dunks, but obviously considering he's a transcendent talent and an amazing player, an abundance of caution will be taken. David Griffin, who was at the game last night, saw him there on ESPN, the Pelicans executive vice president of operations, quote, Zion will move forward from this incident without issue. However, in an abundance of caution, the words I used, we have made the determination that he will not appear in game action for the remainder of the NBA Summer League. He will continue to take part in training and conditioning with our performance team. That was a big story in the NBA last night, only to be usurped by this one. I thought it was the big three in the NBA. We're now down to dynamic duos around the league. Woj is going to be here in just a second. He had the big news last night on both of these guys around 1:55 a.m. Eastern. Kawhi chooses the Clippers, and then essentially telling the Clippers, get me somebody else to make this viable. They got him Paul George. The Oklahoma City Thunder got themselves an unprecedented boatload of picks, and they may be rebuilding as well at this particular moment. Amazing to think that one move by Kawhi could alter the Lakers, the Clippers, the Raptors, and the Thunder. Speaking of the Raptors, their team president, Masai Ujiri, who went all in on Kawhi and obviously paid off. These are his final parting words. We're very thankful for the year that Kawhi and Danny, speaking of Danny Green, played with us here in Toronto. Danny last night signed a big deal. The Lakers, 2 years, $30 million. I know the city and the entire country of Canada are grateful for everything they did to help us win our first NBA championship. He went on to say, on behalf of the Raptors, I say a very heartfelt thank you to Kawhi and to Danny, and we send them and their families nothing but good wishes. As an organization, the Raptors will continue to focus on the future and continue our pursuit of a second championship. So Danny Green to the Lakers, the much bigger story, of course, Kawhi to the Clippers. Adrian broke both of those stories last night involving Paul George and Kawhi. Now with that, we've had a few hours to let it settle. Anything more you can kind of add that you've been able to glean through your reporting?
Well, just how determined Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were to play together. And, Kawhi Leonard was able to look around the landscape and, whether it was LeBron James, Anthony Davis, other free agents who were in the marketplace, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. He wanted to play with a player who was still under contract, Paul George. And over a 72-hour period this week, they essentially muscled Oklahoma City to make that trade. In the end, Oklahoma City got a tremendous haul back, and they were at a crossroads, too, there where they may very well be headed toward a rebuild here. But he got the player he wanted in Paul George to line up with him in the Staples Center. So you have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard against LeBron James, Anthony Davis, all in one building in one NBA arena.
Think about this. The Lakers have their 16 NBA titles, those banners hanging at the Staples Center. The Clippers, folks, have never made the Western Conference Finals, and they win this battle with the Lakers. Also, we should note Sam Presti over the years, the Thunder GM, he's drafted pretty well, and he's going to have, according to Adrian, a boatload of opportunities to do that moving forward. I want to talk a little bit about DeMarcus Cousins here. You also reported earlier today, 1 year, $3.5 million deal with the Lakers. Tell me why this was a mutually beneficial move for both parties.
Well, the Lakers